Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and today we're talking about the Viking Opal 650. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make buttonholes. Now, you have a variety of buttonholes up here. You have your regular square end buttonhole, you have round end, you have different ones. It's the keyhole buttonhole, that's a nice one for like buttons that have a shank on them, kind of like your jeans buttons. And then you can also do the frame for a bound buttonhole right there. Now, different buttonholes are going to be for different kinds of fabric. So, down here in your sewing advisor, if I go buttonhole here for woven medium, this is what it's going to give me. But if I chose a knit, notice it has now the round end buttonhole. Okay. If I was going to do leather, it simply has me sewing a line around that. You don't want to have stitches that are very close together on leather. So let's go back to woven medium. Now, this button is really handy. I usually like to do my buttonholes just a standard square end buttonhole, so that button is my quick go-to button for this kind of fabric. Now you want to have the correct foot. It's calling for this foot, which looks like this little guy here. See that little wheel? And we're going to take off the other foot, so quick change foot. Now before I put it on, I'm going to show you. See this wheel here? As the buttonhole is going to be forming, this wheel is going to be turning. We want to start out with the white line in this white area here that's on the wheel. So not like that, but you want to make sure that it starts out this way. So this is something that you can adjust once you have the buttonhole foot on your machine. Now this little guy is going to plug into your machine. I'm going to show you with my mirror right here. Going to be right up under here. Let's see if we can get it there. There, you can see it right there. That's the little plug-in. Now, once you know where it is, you don't always need to use a mirror, but I was just showing you for educational purposes, that's where you plug in the foot. And the machine is going to be able to read your buttonhole length once you have that on, and notice the screen kind of changed a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on now, and it just clicks right on like that. We put the thread under the foot like this. Now the next thing we want to do is determine the length of the buttonhole here. This is where we're going to use these arrows to, right now it's set at a default for 16 millimeters. So I'm going to go down to my little chart down here, my little ruler, put that right up to 0, and it turns out this is a 13. So I'm going to go down arrow until I get to 13 millimeters. All right. And then I'm going to make sure that's in the white. I'll also make sure again once we have the fabric under the foot. Now for shirt weight cotton, you want to have either interfacing between the two layers, or you want to have 3 layers of fabric. And I've seen nice dress shirts made this way, where they actually use the fabric as a sort of a self-facing. Then, I'm going to take and mark the beginning and center of our buttonhole. The buttonhole is going to start from this end, form towards the back, and then end right there at the beginning. So we're going to start with this here, mark the buttonhole, the long line, and the beginning bar tack right there. Now I'm using this pen, this is called a friction pen. This is a pen that when you erase it using the eraser on the end or use a hot iron, this is going to change that ink to a pale white, which is going to make it so that it doesn't, you can't see it really on white shirts. Now for a darker one, you may need to use it like a chalk pen or something like that. But this is a great tool to use. So don't use regular ballpoint pens or pencils on your fabric. Use something that's meant for fabric. Okay, my friction pen away. I'm going to put this under here, and I'm going to get it lined up so that the long line is right in the middle of the zigzag opening on the foot. Not where the needle is, but where the middle of the foot is. Okay. because our goal is to have that long line be right down the middle of our finished buttonhole. Also, you want to make sure that this is parallel, that the edge of your fabric is parallel with your foot. That way you don't get a cockeyed buttonhole. Now these little lines here are if you want to do your buttonholes going horizontally, you could use those lines, match it up with the edge of your fabric, and it would be an even distance. Each buttonhole would be an even distance away from the edge of your fabric. So that's what those lines are for. Now I'm going to make sure that my little wheel, just like I told you before, that the two white marks are together. And there we go. Now, I have my thread tails off to the side here. If I was doing a shirt, the body of the shirt would be over here. So I want my thread tails off to the side. And when we first start sewing, it's always a good idea. Hang on to those thread tails by just keeping your finger on them for the first 2 stitches. I could use my foot control, but really, you only need to use the start-stop button. Here we go. And I'm just guiding it a little bit, just because if I had a whole garment, my job would be to make sure that a collar or a cuff didn't get under here or didn't drag off the edge of the table. That would be the only thing I would need to do as far as guiding it. Basically, the foot hangs onto the fabric. As far as you don't really need to steer anything. Okay, so we take that out of there, and now you can cut your threads right down to the fabric. That's because it ties a little knot at the end there. Okay, now my marks are pretty much covered up by the stitching, which is what we want. Any marking pen that you use, even if it's an erasable marking pen, is a good idea to make sure that it's not going to show at all in your finished product. Now, once you have this done, all we need to do is cut the buttonhole with your seam ripper, like this. I like to start at one end, go towards the center, flip it over, go to the other end, and go towards the center. Now I'm going to take my button and see if it's the right size. Now this happens to be a little bit too loose, which is why you want to make sure and do a practice buttonhole. So for this situation, what I do is make that maybe a millimeter smaller, do another practice buttonhole on the same kind of fabric that I have in my garment, and then test it again. I could have also just cut it not quite as long, but I like to have buttonholes that are just right consistently. So if I'm making 20 buttonholes, I don't want to have to guess as to how long to cut them. I just want them to be right when I cut them all the way to the ends. So this is how you can adjust it a little bit using these arrows. Now, if on the other hand, it was a thick button, I was having a hard time getting it through the buttonhole, I might want to add a millimeter. That's especially important for the shank type of buttons that, or if you're doing a coat where it's got thick layers of fabric and a thick button, you may want to make that a little longer. Again, test it out on your coat material, including any batting or interfacing that you have in there, that you're going to have in your finished coat, and then test it out with the actual button that you're going to be using. Then, once you've got it set up, you're good to go. Just mark your buttonholes and sew away, and you'll have beautiful buttons in no time. So I hope this video has been helpful to you. If it has, give us a thumbs up, and if you have comments or questions, you can leave those in the area down below. We have other videos on this machine. I invite you to watch them, and we also have other videos on other machines here on our Montavilla YouTube channel. So thanks for watching today. Bye.